So everybody, welcome to the Rebuilding Lives Luncheon for 2019. My name is Chief Guy Swanger from the City of Concord. Welcome to our community and welcome to our hotel. Everybody, if they take their seats, our program is about to begin, so please make your way to your seat, sit down, and I am going to be introducing today's MC, Master of Ceremony. That's okay, we'll hold up for you. I'd like to introduce our MC for today's program. She is the Emmy Award-winning journalist and our local media expert. It's been great to grace us with her time and her knowledge, and that is Ann Notarangelo.
Chief, thank you very much. Let me just take that down because I'm not that tall. Well, as you heard from the Chief, my name's Ann Notarangelo, and I am delighted to be your MC for the 2019 Rebuilding Lives Luncheon, and welcome everybody. How about a big round of applause for all the folks who came out? I know you're all busy today, and it just proves what a worthwhile organization this is and how committed we all are to this organization. So it's great to have you here. To start us off, the committee chair for this year's Rebuilding Lives event committee and vice chair of Stan's Board of Directors, vice president of Farmers and Merchants Bank, Margot Stanford.
Good morning. So thank you guys so much for being here today. It's such a remarkable event, an organization that is so near and dear to my heart. It just makes me so happy to see everyone here in this room full. I want to let you know that first, last year, my table, of course, is a bunch of I love them dearly, but they always have a remark for me. So last year, apparently, I pointed at people and told them not to stand up until I told them. And they said I yelled. So I won't yell at you guys this year, I promise. And you can thank table number, what are you guys, 29? 24? For that. Okay, so we're all here today for the same reason. We care deeply about the safety and health of our community. So I want to start with a note of gratitude for those who made this year's Rebuilding Lives Luncheon possible. Please help me thank our generous sponsors and hold your applause till the end. Our presenting sponsor, the Dean and Margaret Lesher Foundation. Our leader sponsors, APM Cares, Jamel and Tom Perkins, and Miller Starbogalia. Our benefactor sponsors, AT&T, Linda Best, Bridgepoint Funding, Angie Coffee, Cross Country Mortgage, F&M Bank, Hall Equities Group, John Muir Health, Kaiser Permanente Diablo Region, Kitty Cole and Associates, Joe Mullen Jr. and family, Charles Schwab, Walnut Creek, Scott Seafood, Marcia Servetnik, Wells Fargo, and Alice Villanueva. Thank you guys. So now I'd like to acknowledge who is all in the room with us this morning. Joining us today are the following policymakers and community leaders. Policymakers, will you please stand and stay standing while I introduce you? Please hold your applause until the end. Former Assembly Member, 16th District, Catherine Baker. District 2 Supervisor, Candace Anderson. District 4 Supervisor, Karen Mitchoff. Office of the District Attorney, Dinah Becton. City of Martinez Councilmember Ross. City of Clayton Vice Mayor, Julie Pierce. And City of Concord Mayor, Carolyn Obringer. Thank you. We also have law enforcement in the room with us this morning, and I'd like to introduce them as well. In attendance, we have Antioch Police Department Chief Brooks, Brentwood Police Department Lieutenant Ogrodnik and Captain Silva, Concord Police Department Chief Swanger, Captain Roche, and Provisional Lieutenant Roberts. El Cerrito Police Department Captain De La Campa and Detective Sergeant Wong. Martinez Police Department Chief Sapal, Captain Johnson, and Lieutenant Estonal. Pinole Police Department, Chief Gang, Lieutenants Alameda and Avery, Sergeant Roberts, and Detectives Breckenridge and Fodor. Pittsburgh Police Department, Captains Albanese and Wentz, and Lieutenant Gaylor. Pleasant Hill Police Department, Chief Hill, Captain Kogler, Lieutenant Nichols, and Detective Sergeant Preby. Richmond Police Department, Interim Chief French. And San Pablo Police Department, Chief Ramon, Captain Bubar, Sergeant Lindblom, and Detective Blaisdell and Detective Balducci. Thank you so much for the work that you do. We also have in attendance our community partners, Contra Costa County Employment and Human Services Department, Alliance to End Abuse Initiative, Contra Costa Family Justice Centers, First Five Contra Costa, and Opportunity Junction. In addition, with us are our loyal donors. Our work is not possible without your support. So for those of you that are first-timers this morning, welcome. Thank you for spending your morning and early afternoon with us. I want to thank two of our community champions who specifically held events at their businesses during Domestic Violence Awareness Month to raise the awareness about the issue of domestic violence in our community and to raise funds for support key services and programs here at STAND. Thank you to Drs. Mariotti and Dr. Pototskin and their wonderful staff. Also, thank you to this year's event committee and event supporters. We appreciate all that you do to make this lunch possible. I have so many wonderful, remarkable members of our team that put numerous hours into making this lunch possible, down to the details, drilling down to the small, fine things that you may not even notice. We have probably driven each other all crazy, but when it comes down to it, we all love each other, and this is not possible without that team. So I'd like our current board of directors to please stand so we can acknowledge you. I know you guys are out there. All right, thank you. In addition, I want the past members of our board to stand, and if you could stay standing. The current Rebuilding Lives Luncheon 2019 event committee, our past Rebuilding Lives committee chairs to stand. I want our amazing staff to stand because they are really just the worker bees behind this lunch, put so much time in. And our magical volunteers, please stand. Thank you guys so, so much. So finally, before I hand the mic back to Ann, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. Table captains, if you notice, there is a hand-painted pumpkin at each table. Those are for you to take along with you at the end of the lunch. Those were put together and created and decorated by the youth in our shelter. So they had a great time putting that together for you guys. Make sure to take that along with you. And then because our topic today can be sensitive and difficult, we encourage you to take care of yourselves and one another around you. And if you find that you need any support throughout today's lunch, on either side of the door, we will have Allison and Jenny standing by to meet with you. Allison and Jenny, could you guys raise your hands so we can all see you? All right, thank you, thank you. Thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoy your time here today. Mildred, I just dropped your fan. So, thank you both.
Thank you, Margot. So this time last year, we were very fortunate to have a special guest with us, the Honorable Ellen Tauscher. Ellen, as we all know, is a local leader who is deeply involved in the improving lives and women and children in this community. In fact, she was the chair of this very event in 1994, and that was the year that we gave the Rollie Mullen Leadership Award to best-selling author Terry McMillan. As we also know, earlier this year, Ellen passed away. But here, representing her legacy, is her daughter, Catherine Tauscher. Please join me in welcoming Catherine to the stage.
Hi, everyone. As Anne said, I'm Ellen's daughter, Catherine. Thank you so much for honoring my mom today and inviting me to join this luncheon. As said before, this organization has been part of my mom's life for more than 25 years. My mom chaired this luncheon in 1994, 2 years before she was elected to represent this district in Washington. Funny enough, I was actually texting my mom's little sister, my Aunt Sally, this morning about my day, and she let me know that she attended this very luncheon in 1994. She had fond memories and even remembered that Terry McMillan was the keynote speaker. From what I can remember, this was my first time at this luncheon, but who knows? I could have been sitting on my Aunt Sally's lap 25 years ago as my mom spoke. But luckily, last year's luncheon was recorded, and I was able to see my mom's remarks. In the video, there was one quote that exemplifies my mom's pledge to this organization and speaks to how this organization has grown and succeeded. These are my mom's words, not mine. I can't tell you how proud I am of what Stan has done, and it remains deep in my heart as a group that has pioneered in so many ways very innovative programming for women and children and families that are victims of domestic violence. These issues are at home. These issues are in our community. That's really where the best services are delivered, and that's where families get to heal. I'm so proud of all of you and all that you have done. As I look around the room, I recognize a lot of faces and know that many of you are people that my mom considered very great friends. She was very proud of what this organization has accomplished, and she is very hopeful for the impact it will make on the future. Thank you again for honoring her, and thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Catherine, for being here. We all miss your mom's leadership, and I think by the showing today and the good works that continue our community, we are committed to carrying on with the work that she started, that she loved, and her passion. So thank you again. And in memory of Ellen, how about a nice round of applause again for her daughter? It is now my pleasure to welcome Stan's CEO, Rhonda James.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon. Is this good? So we did it a little bit differently this year so we could be in the luncheon with you. So we missed so much by being up here. So thanks so much for being here. So I'm going to tell you about two things today. I'm going to tell you about what, and I'm going to tell you about why. I feel like we owe you what? Our faithful donors, those of you who pay taxes, a lot of those in the room. I think we owe it to you to tell you what we do every year with your hard-earned dollars and how we serve this community. So what we continue to do is we continue to keep our 24/7 crisis line, multilingual crisis line available. We continue to answer that phone 10 to 15,000 times a year. It's a lot of phone calls. Ask Ashley. We continue to do our lethality assessment protocol program with our law enforcement partners. We continue to serve well over 2,000 youth in our Youth Against Violence program, in our gender-based support groups. We continue to support and serve at least 200 children a year who are exposed to domestic violence or other kinds of trauma. And what I promised, and we do all the ancillary services that go with that. So you all know that, but I can never stop talking about it, and you have the right to know that information. You can take a look at our website. What I did promise you last year, because I too looked back on our program last year, I promised you that I would check in with you about the work that we're doing with men, with boys, and those identified as male. So in really taking a deep dive into what we actually offer, I'm very proud to say that we offer the same exact services I just listed. Any man who's abused in this community, any boy, any young man, any child, gets the same services. But we know that that's a smaller number. We know that's a much smaller number. Where we overwhelmingly serve men is in our Batters Intervention Program. That's what it's called by law. We call it our nonviolence program. So what we do in our nonviolence program this year is we've taken our group offerings from 3, thank you Raina, thank you Lisa, thank you Ben, from 3 groups a year, and these are 52-week commitments for those mostly men who have been referred by the courts in probation. So that group number went from about 3 to 9 at this time and getting ready to add a 10th. So we're happy to say in those group offerings we were able to have multi-regions, locations. We even have a group in West County Detention Center. We've added a Spanish-speaking group, getting ready to send that off, and we've begun, that's right, we've begun a women's group. We find that women batterers look very different than male batterers, and we're finding over and over again, sort of like growing up, that you just have to learn the same lessons over and over again. We find that every single person who's done harm, every batterer that we interact with, has a different story. What they have in common is a need to work through the trauma in their lives and also to be held accountable for those they've harmed and making a difference toward their own transformation. And we sit on that razor's edge, once again, between holding those who batter accountable and also holding out for their transformation. So that's the what we do. So the more important thing, I think, or just as important sometimes in the conversation, is why we do it. At Stand, a lot of times in my personal life, my professional life, people ask, well, how do you do this work? How can you stand looking at really terrible, terrible stories? How can you stand to hear these really hard things that happen with people? And I can't imagine doing anything else for a living. And our entire staff, and I think our board, couldn't imagine doing anything else for a living. So what we see is the hope that happens over and over again, and what we also know is that we have front row seats, and some of us have season tickets, to some of the most interesting and most compelling issues in our community. We know that there's an intersection and a trans section. Excuse me. I don't want to fall off the front of the stage here. We know that the intersections are really deep and wide. What we know is that domestic violence is such a huge issue, family violence, in the lives of so many people. It's not just the numbers. We know that it's the third leading cause of homelessness. We know that it's the second leading cause of death for African American women. We know that 1 in 15 children are exposed to domestic violence. We know that it's a huge, encompassing issue. But something that is emerging more and more in the last few years, sadly, and you'll see it reflected in our installation out front, is there's an absolute connection between intimate terrorism and domestic terrorism. So what we did is we took a look at data sets that were really verified, and so we found a 9-year slice, and we presented that out in the lobby. That 9-year slice is the last 9 years in this country of those incidents that were considered mass shootings. Now again, a mass shooting means it had to have deaths of 4 or more. So if only 3 people were killed, it's not considered a mass shooting. If people were killed in groups of 3, but many groups, it's not a mass shooting. It might be called a spree. So you're going to hear later from Mildred Muhammad, who talks about her experience as a survivor. And what you'll realize is her experience isn't even technically considered a mass shooting. So what we know, when we look at this 9-year data set, that in those 1,001 deaths that occurred, 54% at least were formally known to have emanated from a domestic violence or a family violence episode. What people don't remember is on the way to Sandy Hook, that shooter took the life of his mother. What people don't remember, some of you in the room may remember the Texas clock tower. I hazard to guess some of us remember that. One of the first sort of documented mass shootings in Texas and Austin. And that man had murdered his wife and mother before he went on the clock tower. So what we're seeing over and over in the research is that actually, it's not that domestic violence will predict mass shootings and community violence. It actually is, by and large, hugely overlaid, about 54%. What we also know, when children die in these incidents, 84% of them are from a domestic violence issue. So you look at the children killed in Sandy Hook and how that started as a domestic violence, family violence issue. So Mildred will be talking more about that. So my job for you is to sort of create that connection and to begin that conversation. Many of you already know the impact of domestic violence. I want you to consider the ways in which people's lives are lost at a grander scale, how we're very, very connected. Again, I'll take you back to the installation out front. We have it in 2 groups. So of the 1,001 people who were killed during that 9-year swath. About just under 500 were those related directly to domestic violence, and you'll see that on purple. Just around 250 were children, and you see that in blue. And about 125, give or take, were law enforcement. So what we see is how very deadly and how very connected. So we did a little visual for you. You'll see a carabiner on your table. So that little hook is to remind you that we're connected, and these issues are connected, and that our survival is connected. So on that really somber note, I'll give it back to Ann. Thank you. So just tell people to keep eating. You're doing a good job. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue with our program as you continue to have lunch. So I'd like to now tell you a little bit about our annual Leadership Award. It's named after Stan's earliest executive director, Rollie Mullen, and represented by her families here today, the Mullen table. Where's the Mullen table? There, over there, number table 12. Wait, raise your hands high. There you go. The Rollie Mullen Leadership Award is an annual acknowledgement of an individual or a group who demonstrates volunteer leadership and service to the community in the work to end domestic violence. This year, we are thrilled to have not one recipient, but a group of 16 Youth Against Violence, or as we call them, YAVs. You'll be meeting them soon, but let's first watch a brief video about the YAV leaders.
It's important to me just because, for one, I grew up in Solano County, but I lived in Vallejo my whole life, so it's very close to Richmond and that side of the bridge. But a lot of these kids are the same age I was when I was playing sports and making some not so great decisions and things like that. So it's good to be able to guide them and be able to be somewhat of that navigator to help them. I know also at this age in my life, or at least when my brother was this age, he went through a lot of different things and stuff like that. So it almost gives me a sense of being able to talk to my younger brother or talk to a younger self of mine and hopefully give them some of the tools I wish I would have had at that point in time in my life. So that's what is really rewarding for me.
Everyone says, talk to your parents, which is true. You should talk to your parents if you can. And that's not always possible. And it's not always something you're comfortable with. So I think, I wish I had someone who could have told me just, that's not okay. And you don't have to put up with that and you don't have to deal with that. And I just wish I had that person outside of my home, just because sometimes that's what you need. And so having the opportunity every day, even if, 90% of the kids are, in healthy relationships doing well, that one person who might just need to hear, you don't need to put up with this, you deserve better, I think is something that it's a really big privilege to be able to do that every day, just in case someone needs to hear it.
I grew up in Vallejo too, but I've also grew up in Richmond, so I kind of know the Richmond community well, and I know that I've experienced a lot of times I was in family households that had domestic violence and domestic abuse going on. So I just feel like being able to for kids to know that they can come here and be a part of the program it's a great feeling.
Great part about YAV is like with our support groups, they're semester long, 10 weeks, and we get to know the students a little bit, but it's an hour every week, and we have a curriculum, and we have to kind of we get to know them, but only a little bit. And so YAV, we've gotten to know these kids really well. Like, I talk to their parents. I know what foods they don't want to eat, what foods they do want to eat. I know who their crushes are. We're able to get to know them a lot more deeply. And so they've said it before, but it feels like a little family where me and Ron and Janice are the co-parents to a very lovely, diverse group of 15 to 18-year-olds.
I think the beauty of this group is all these kids come from different schools. They all come from different parts of the county, everywhere from El Cerrito to Danville. And a lot of them, when we came together, they didn't know each other, and for them to kind of collaborate and meet up every Wednesday and over the summer to do special projects for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, is special. I don't know too many places where you can find a group of kids like this who volunteer their time. They volunteer their time on Wednesdays after school. They could be doing anything, and they do other things. They all have sports, extracurricular activities. They all have good grades and everything. So it's very special that they still care about this cause because it's so real in their lives, especially every day at school, and they see their friends going through it, if they've known family to go through and things like that. So it's very motivational for us to come here and work with a group that's so inspired to do work that we're passionate about. Seeing them every week, I've said it for a long time now, YAV on Wednesdays is my favorite part of my job. Every time I get to pick them up and we get to come to the office, share a meal together, talk about serious topics, and then plan on what to do about those issues that we have going on in our community and our world. Those things really give me a peace of mind and help me sleep better at night. And it also gives me something to look forward to.
Also, the one-on-ones we get to have, and when we get to talk with kids one-on-one, when they come to us with the things they're going through, it's just really nice to know that we can be people they can trust. And
seeing them smile and seeing them when they worked with the kids at the Rainbow Room, just seeing how interested they were in doing the activities they were doing and everything like that, it was amazing to see. Just because you see kids that want to help kids that's they don't have to do that. Like Ron said, they could be anywhere doing anything else, but instead they're doing this. So it's really good to see.
Every Wednesday we're covering topics from poverty to homophobia to racism to anything. I'm expecting us to equip you guys with that knowledge, then to go out and then teach your peers. So then when we do campaigns and things like that, you guys can speak as passionate about it and as informed about it as we are when we're teaching you guys on Wednesday. So just giving you as much tools as possible, for when you guys go into the world, not only to help you with your own relationships, but then to also then teach your peers.
I just want you guys to be able to go and not only take it to your peers and your friends, but take it to people in your family too, so they can just have it for your cousins and cousins to come. So everybody will, be able to learn from you and what you've already put out there and what you've accomplished here at Stand.
What great work. Presenting the YAV leaders with the 2019 Rollie Mullen Leadership Award, please help me welcome Stand's Youth Education and Supportive Services staff, Ron Beverly.
Good afternoon, everyone. Whoa, okay. That wasn't planned. My name is Ron Beverly. I'm a Community Education and Engagement Coordinator at STAND, and I oversee the Youth Against Violence program. And I think I speak on behalf of all staff when I say just how proud we are of our students and the work that they do every Wednesday and throughout the summer. I know personally I feel so fortunate and privileged to be able to work day in and day out with them. I'm also very proud that STAND has a program that uplifts the voices of the youth and allows them to do things, that they're not able to usually do, especially at their age. I think a lot of times they feel that adults don't give them the credit maybe they deserve, but they do go through a whole bunch of different things. So I would love to introduce my students now. So if I could have Brianna Loiza Cartagena. Sarah Khan. Jonathan Castaneda. Ashley On. Queen Love. Tavita Leilau. Kate Remick. Ricky Salas. Lily Rojas. Jasmine Alfaro. Leslie Jimenez. And last but not least, Ms. Kalila Jordan. Also, I couldn't do this alone, so I want to invite up my staff members, my teammates, Casey Castaldi and Janisa Walker. For the past 34 years, Stan's Youth Against Violence program has brought together teenagers from high schools and middle schools all over Contra Costa County with one goal in mind: to end and stop teen dating violence. The Youth Against Violence program, or as we call it, YAV, is a truly special program comprised of some extraordinary individuals. These voluntary participants dedicate their summers and after school time to collaborate on projects to build and spread awareness of teen dating violence around their school campuses. They put together various projects and campaigns for domestic and teen dating violence awareness months, and they even spend many holidays putting on events at our Rowley Mullen Center for the kids there and for residents. Each one of our students possesses tremendous motivation and drive, becoming allies for their peers to break cycles of generational violence, to encourage others to not become bystanders. They create the conversations on campus that violence should not be silent or ignored, but challenge the ideas and stereotypes that society has created in order to make their community and our community a safer and more loving place. Now, I'd like to invite a couple of our leaders to speak. So speaking on behalf of the entire Youth Against Violence program, our current members and soon graduating seniors, Kate Remick and Leslie Jimenez.
Hi everyone, my name is Kate Remick and I'm a senior at Monte Vista High School in Danville.
Hello, I'm Leslie Jimenez. I go to John F. Kennedy and I'm a senior.
Throughout my entire life, I both witnessed and experienced domestic violence in my home. It was normal to me because it was the only definition of family I had been taught. Growing up with domestic violence hurt my self-esteem and sense of belonging within my home and within my community. When my parents divorced, it took a while for the dust to settle, but being in a better place gave me the hindsight I needed to take action. I wanted to teach others that fear does not belong in the home. However, it was hard to find volunteer opportunities in domestic violence prevention as a teenager. Eventually, I found YAV, which was unique because it not only included teenagers, but encouraged them to take the lead. I went from reflection to action when I applied to be a YAV leader.
I didn't go through the same thing as Kay growing up, but because of that, I'm able to see the situation from a different perspective. I've always been quick to speak my mind and give support to people around me. So when I learned more about the impacts of domestic and teen dating violence through STAN, I knew that I wanted to lend my voice to the fight. I knew that my perspective could make me a valuable ally to victims and survivors, and YAV gave me the platform to become that ally.
Like Leslie, this program gave me the platform to advocate against teen dating violence. It helped develop my voice and made me strong enough to speak out about difficult topics. My fellow YAV encouraged and inspired me. I used to be too ashamed to talk about domestic abuse. Now I can deliver speeches, run campaigns, and educate youth about domestic abuse. As a victim, I feel that my voice is especially powerful. YAV has truly uplifted me, which is important because teenagers don't usually feel like they can be impactful. I also found a tight-knit community through YAV. We call it our YAV family. The youth leaders in this program all bring different experiences, backgrounds, and perspectives, creating a unique blend of goodness.
Being a part of YAV, of the YAV family over the past 2 years has helped me understand the ingredients and the importance of a healthy relationship with others. But more importantly, it's helped me discover the importance of a healthy relationship with myself. And having that relationship with myself and like developing a higher value has helped me have healthier relationship with others and become more powerful ally to my peers. Having that healthy mindset and knowing your worth is something that everybody deserves. Sorry. Participating in YAV has also shown me that I have a passion for community building, and I'm always looking for ways to give back to my community and to make sure that what I've done will last for the future. I hope that the work we've done as YAV will inspire future leaders to continue to build on the foundation that we've built.
As for me, I currently drive 45 minutes from Danville to Richmond to participate in YAV every Wednesday. And while I don't mind the drive, I would love to see this program expand into the Central County so that more teenagers could have these conversations. Once I graduate, I hope to find a similar community or expand YAV onto my college campus. Domestic abuse can happen to anyone, therefore it's important to create a place of acceptance for victims and allies alike. Thank you all for giving us the time to share our stories today and for recognizing not only all of the YAV leaders here today, but those who came before us and will come after us. Thank you. That way.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. How about another big round of applause for these extraordinary youth? We're the ones who are lucky. So we're all here today because we care about the safety and the health of our communities, right? As Rhonda said earlier, the safety of our communities is directly linked to our individual safety. And think about that for a second. Our individual safety is then reflected upon our entire community. So here to share her very personal but public experience of how abuse behind closed doors was directly linked to the injury of many and the deaths of 17 innocent community members across the DC Beltway in 2002. We're joined by 5-time author, trainer, advocate, ex-wife, and intended victim of the DC sniper, Mildred Muhammad.
Good afternoon. Is it afternoon or morning? I'm from the East Coast, so you know it's like 3 o'clock. And so I am grateful to be here to speak to you today. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you all for coming to this wonderful event. It is to help families regarding domestic violence. And I don't know if you all can see me because, you know, I can be a little crazy. Domestic violence is a worldwide epidemic. It does not have an educational status. It happens to men, women, and children. It can happen when you least expect it. John and I were married for 12 years. He was in the military. He was a combat engineer, 84th combat engineer. He was an expert shot. He was a hand-to-hand combat expert, and he could make a weapon out of anything. So I know that some of y'all in here remember MacGyver, the old one, not the new one. And John was like that. He could make a weapon out of anything. He was caught into Desert Storm, and he was there for 3 months. But when he came back, he was different. There are many stories that you hear about soldiers returning from a war zone and they're being different. Well, that was the same case with John. he would sit over in the corner and rock back and forth. And I say, honey, are you okay? He said, I'm good. So, you know, when men say I'm good, there's a whole lot of emotions in I'm good. Because men can be victims of domestic violence, which we don't like to talk about so often. 1 in 7 men are victims of domestic violence. I tend to believe that number is higher. But when men have this issue, they don't tell everybody. They're quiet. They're not going to say, hey, you know, I'm a victim of domestic violence. Because the first thing everybody else is going to say is, well, I thought you was the man. Why you let that little girl do that to you? They start to challenge their manhood. And there are men who are victims of domestic violence, and we have to create a safe space for them to express their emotions without feeling that they are being attacked. But why are you talking about men with domestic violence? Because I have a son. And I have to help him in case he is ever in that situation to understand the emotions that men go through that are different than women. 1 in 4 women are victims of domestic violence. I tend to believe that number is higher because we don't always get to express how we feel. 80% of victims do not have physical scars to prove they're victims. So because I didn't say there was a gender, there is a victim, a survivor, and an abuser in this room right now. The person sitting next to you could be a victim or a survivor. Because, you know, we don't like to say we victims because people think we're pathetic. But why you stay? Why are you there that long? Don't you know better? Well, if you're comfortable enough to ask me that question, then you will have to clear out a room in your house so that I can come and stay with you. And you can provide the food, clothing, shelter, and security that I need because I'm scared. There are many reasons why we stay, all of which we don't have to give you a reason. We just need you to believe us and help us. Don't play the hero in my life. Just pass me on to somebody who can help me. STAND is a wonderful organization to do that. They have many advocates, many programs to help everybody. So if you don't know how to help somebody, at least give them the resource of STAND. And then you will be a part of that person's healing. And with your wonderful donations that you're going to give, then they can expand their program to other cities like the young lady just said. So keep that in mind when you're giving your donations later. But anyway, back to my story. When he came back from Desert Storm, of course, he was different. He wasn't the same person. PTSD he was diagnosed with, at that time, they didn't have many resources for PTSD like they do now. So, and as a soldier, if you have a mental issue on your record, you cannot be promoted. So he didn't tell anybody. But as the spouse, you try to get help for the person as much as possible without them feeling that they're being attacked. So we got out of the military and we started our own mobile auto repair service. In the mobile auto repair service, he was having multiple affairs. And he was fixing more than the cars, so you know what I'm... All right, just making sure y'all with me, right? All right, so I said, I want a divorce. He said, well, I don't want a divorce. I said, here, I'm trying to help you out. This way you don't have to lie to me. You don't have to tell me you're over here when you're over there. I want a divorce. He left the house. That's when the madness started. He started coming in the middle of the night. I heard a key going in the door, turning. I'm in the back room. I heard him walking down the hallway. I laid there as quiet as I could with my eye open to a slither to watch him walk in the room, walk from this side of the bed to the other, lean over to listen to me breathe, stand up and leave. He did that 3 times. The 3rd time, our baby girl woke up. He picks her up and said, here's Taliba, like he's supposed to be there. and then he leaves. I called the locksmith to get my locks changed. So he was still talking to our children, and he asked my son, he said, so big man, what's going on? Never tell your children you're in a domestic violence situation. Don't tell them what you're trying to do, He says, Daddy, Mommy's gonna get the locks changed. He said, so you're gonna get the locks changed? Yes, I am. Well, why? I said, because something's wrong with my key. He said, you know what? Something's wrong with my key too. Let me show you. Come on, let's go to the front door. We go to the front door. He tries to put his key in the lock. It wouldn't go in. He said, give me your key. He tries to put my key in the lock. Doesn't go in. He said, I'm going to take the lock out and go get another one and come back. Well, he took it out, and when he turned it, a straight pin fell out. So he sabotaged the lock before he even came in the house. So he left, took the lock off, didn't come back. So I had to take a chair, prop it up under the door to secure me, my mom, and my children until the locksmith came, which he did. So you get one thing fixed, know that something else is wrong. My phone stopped ringing. So I checked the dial tone, because I know I paid the bill. Checked the dial tone, it's still good. Hung up the phone, it rang. It was my friend. She said, hey, I just called to check on you to see how you and the children doing. I said, we're good, but what number you called? She said, well, John changed your number. He just wanted me to call to see how y'all doing. I said, well, give me my number. She said, no, girl, I ain't giving you your number. I said, why are you not giving me my number? She said, I'm scared of John. I'm calling to check on you like he said, and I'm not giving you your number. Click. So I called the phone company. I said, I need to get my number changed because I'm getting harassed. You know, you can do that the first time, and they won't charge you. Did y'all know that? Okay, so now you know. Changed my number, hung up the phone, my phone rang. Answered it, it was John. He said, who told you to change this number? I said, I don't need your permission to change my number. He said, don't change it again. I called the phone company, had my number changed again. Soon as I hung up the phone, it rang. Picked up the phone, it was John. He said, didn't I tell you not to change this number? Hung up the phone, called the phone company. This time I asked for a supervisor. I said, isn't it against the law for you to change the number of a resident when that person's name is not on the bill? Pause. Yes, ma'am, that is correct. Let's get your number changed and we'll put a code on your phone. As he's changing the number, he said, you know what? He's calling right now, so let's hurry up and get your number changed. So, had my number changed. Then he came over and said, we need to talk. So I go in the garage with him because my brother is in the house. So he says, you're not going to raise my children by yourself. You have become my enemy, and as my enemy, I will kill you. So I didn't want to look scared. And I said, well, I've been sleeping with the enemy all this time. What else you going to do? He charged at me. I ran to my brother. He left. I told my brother, I said, John's going to kill me. He's going to kill me. He said, girl, John not going to kill you. He's just playing. I never went to my brother again for help because you didn't believe me the first time. And I don't have the time nor the energy to explain to you the danger that my life is in. When I come to you as a victim of domestic violence and your first response is, he wouldn't do that. She's not like that. You have automatically taken the side of the abuser. And the victim will never talk to you again because now he or she is afraid, their life is in danger because you are going to go to the abuser and say, guess what she said to me? And there I am. If someone comes to you, hold their confidence. Get them the help that they need. If they're coming to you, it's for a reason. You must have said something or done something to make them feel secure in coming to you for help. It's hard to say I'm a victim of domestic violence. I could have a physical ailment. People will come, since I'm in California, people will come from Washington, D.C. to walk my dog and cook for me and do everything. As soon as I tell you I'm in a social issue, why do you stay? There are 10 times more shelters for animals in this country than there are for women. But why should women need shelters anyway? So we have to think about that. So As I was trying to get my phone number changed and all of that, he said, you have become my enemy, and as my enemy, I will kill you. He came and forced his way into the house. I fell back, hit my head on the fireplace, called the police. He ran. And when the police came, they asked me, did I have a restraining order? Here's the paperwork. So I go fill out the paperwork, crying in the courtroom, in the courthouse, because 12 children, Lord have mercy, 12 years, and 3 children, and a business. How did I get here? Filled out the paperwork. The judge gave me a lifetime restraining order. So you need to get away from this guy. I said, Your Honor, I'm trying to do that. But we still had to have visitation with the children. So we had somebody to pick the children up from me and take them to him, and vice versa. The first weekend went fine. Second weekend was my mother's birthday. She liked to go to Country Buffet. I think they closed all of them now, but she liked to go to Country Buffet. I told him you have to have them back by 5 o'clock. So we had them Friday until Sunday. Sunday, the person that picked them up came over and said, here's a note from your daughter for her grandmother. It was a note with $2, say, happy birthday, grandma. I said, where are my children? He said, well, you got to call John. So, we didn't have cell phones back then, telling my age. Back then, like they do now, blowing up his pager. He called at 7:35. My son was on the phone. I said, ask your dad what time you're coming home. He said, Mom, Dad said we'll be there at 8:30. 8:30 came, no John. Blowing up his pager again. At 11:35 p.m., he calls and says, we're en route from Seattle. We'll be there shortly. Well, you're supposed to be in Tacoma, and Seattle is 45 minutes away. So as I'm hanging up the phone, something's wrong. So I wait all night. The next day is Monday. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe he took the children to school for me. Called the school, no children. I waited until that Friday, a whole week, went to the school, and they said, Ms. Muhammad, your children are here. Go home and call the police. Went home and called the police. They came over. They said, well, Ms. Muhammad, do you have a parenting plan? No, sir, but we were getting ready to go. And sorry. There's nothing we can do. I call that the window of opportunity. Because when you don't have a custody plan in place and you're in the window of getting court proceeding, that's that window that the children can be taken on both sides. He said, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. I said, but does he have a right to keep them from me? They were gone for 18 months. People knew where my children were and didn't tell me. They would come over and check on me and then go back and call John and tell him what I was doing. So for Mother's Day, I was signing for a package and I passed out. The paramedics came. 2 people knew I was in the hospital. The lady across the street who took care of my mother and my mother. Got to the hospital, they told me I had lost 3 units of blood and I needed a transfusion. I'm in the hospital. Nobody knows I'm in there. My phone rang. It's John. He said, how you doing? I said, I'm good. He said, how's Mom? I said, she's good. I said, why won't you let the children call me? He said, we don't always get what we want, do we? See, a victim and an abuser have a dialogue that only those 2 people understand. He had already said to me, you have become my enemy, and as my enemy, I will kill you. So I had 2 choices. I could go back to him and die, or I could hang up the phone and never see my children again. I hung up the phone, and I let out a scream. The nurses came in, and I asked them, could they trace the call? They traced the call to a woman who called the hospital for him to find out where I was. My mother called the hospital shortly thereafter and said that John was on his way to the hospital to kill her daughter. So they took me out of one room and put me in another. They took my name off of the register. They posted a guard outside my door. Anybody that was coming up to see me had to show their ID so I could identify to them who John was. A social worker came and said, Mildred, you can't go home. There's 3 things you need to do. 1, change your name, but make sure it's a name that when someone calls you, you will respond. So my safe name is Millie. 2, we're going to bring you different clothes. 3, the hardest thing of all, you have to disconnect from everybody that you know because we have to put you in hiding. So that night, They took me out of the back door of the hospital, and a car was waiting. I get in the car, they say, we need for you to slouch down in the front because we don't want anybody to know you're in the car. So as we're driving, I'm looking at the rooftops, I'm looking at the open windows because I know John's motto was one shot, one kill to the head, never leave an enemy behind. So I knew it was going to be a headshot. Once we got to the shelter, the staff comes up and said, Millie, you're in luck, you got your own room. Like, I want to be in the shelter. I'm sitting on the bed like, what am I doing here? 3 children, a business, and I'm in a shelter. The next day, 18 women coming up. They look at me, I'm looking at them too. I'm green as the grass. They're looking at me too. They sizing me up, I'm sizing them up too. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? I ain't never had a fight in my life. What you gonna do? So I'm sitting in there trying to figure out what to do, and a commercial comes on, Professional Career Development Institute. Remember those courses? They were $5 back then. You know they're not $5 no more. So I signed up for paralegal. I'm making straight A's in the shelter. YWCA find out about it. They've asked me to come to their facility to help with other victims and survivors of domestic violence. I'm actually at a point to where I can go to the courthouse with victims to secure a restraining order and to help them to put the paperwork together to get their children. So I'm in the courtroom and I need to get my own paperwork straight. So I got a writ of habeas corpus, which meant anywhere they found my children, they needed to bring them back to me. Washington State had just passed a law stating that if you are a victim of domestic violence, you can leave the state without being charged with kidnapping, and you do not have to let the abuser know where you're going. I had all of my paperwork notarized. My sister called me in Maryland and said, Mama's sick. Can you come and help her? But have you found your children? I say, no, I haven't, but I can wait over there. When I get over there, I file my restraining order on the full faith and credit in Washington, D.C., and in Maryland, because those were the 2 places that I was going to be. It could have the same power from Washington as it would have there. I called the FBI because my children are not in the country. So they sent over Agent Jensen Jordan. He said, Ms. Muhammad, how you know your children are not in the country? I say, well, my cousin is a private investigator, and he said, when you are looking for someone and the trail runs cold, that means they are no longer in the country. He said, all right, Ms. Muhammad, give me what paperwork you got. I gave him my divorce decree, writ of habeas corpus, pictures of John, pictures of our children. He took all my paperwork. He said, okay, we'll be in touch. 2 weeks later, I get all my paperwork back with a note. Say, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. But since this is an ongoing case, we're going to refer you back to the FBI agency in Seattle. Called that agency, told them, running for my life. I'm in hiding. He has my children. They're not in the country. He said, okay, Ms. Muhammad, since we know he's looking for you, what we want to do is we want to put you in the middle of a parking lot and use you as a decoy. This way, we can lure him out. I said, excuse me. It's going to be a headshot. You're not going to know which way the bullet is coming from. They say, well, you know, we're just trying to help you out. Click. August the 30th, I get a call from the Phoebe house, the shelter I was in, and say, Millie, I think we found your children. You need to fax all of your paperwork to Bellingham Police Department to Detective McCarthy. So I did that, followed up with a phone call. We don't have to do that these days when we fax, because we don't fax anymore. Followed up with a phone call, and he said, well, Ms. Muhammad, you know, we're on the border of Canada. And once he gets across that border, we won't be able to get your children. I say, I appreciate that information, but if you could just please go get my children, I would appreciate that too. August the 31st at 4:35 p.m., he called and he said, Ms. Muhammad? I said, yes, sir. He said, we got your children. I said, what you talking about? I said, no, we got your children. I'm screaming and crying. My brother-in-law comes. I said, what's going on? I said, you got to talk to them because they found my children. I hadn't heard their voices in 18 months. First person I talked to was my daughter, Taliba. She says, hi, Mommy. So this has never happened where you do the paddles when you're in the medical and it pump your heart, make you breathe again. I felt that's the experience that I felt. My blood started flowing again. And she says, hi, Mommy. I say, hey, honey. She said, you want to talk to my sister? Yeah, let me talk to your sister. Talk to Selena. She say, Mommy, guess what? I say, what, honey? She said, you missed 2 birthdays. I say, I'm sorry, honey, I'll make it up to you, but my son didn't want to talk to me because he was angry that I took him away from his dad. So we had to have an emergency custody hearing, which I flew back to Washington State, and we were in the courtroom. I was scared. The judge said, we're here today to decide who gets custody of the children. John said, Your Honor, she already knew where those children were. I don't even know why we're here. He said, again, we're here today to decide who gets custody of the children. And since her paperwork was done pro se, which meant I did it myself, and it is in perfect order, she will get custody of the children. He said, Your Honor, are you telling me I'll never see my children again? He said, you have to go through the same process she went through. They gave him the document to release the children to me. He signed it and flipped it back to the court. Case dismissed. So we waited for him to leave. We go in the hallway. My attorney is in front of me. My advocate is next to me. The courtroom door is here. So my attorney is calling to find out where the children are. I feel a presence. I turn, it's John. I take off down the hallway. My attorney and my advocate looked at me. They looked at John, and they ran too. We all ran around the corner, looked back at John. He had his hand on the courtroom door, looked at me and said, gotcha. My attorney said, oh, hell no. We getting out of here tonight. So we go to the police station that's in the courtroom, and we tell them what happened. Say, can we please go out the back door? They say, no, you can't go out this door. You need to go out the front door, just like everybody else. So we walking in a triangle to watch everybody's back, get in the car. We go over to social services, because that's where my children are. First person I see is my son. He's tall and skinny, trying to wear an afro, but he had a dome going on. And I should have said, because he had his pants on his butt, I should have said, honey, I'm so glad to see you, but I'm pulling up his pants. Say, is this going to be an issue? See my daughter's coming down the elevator. Mommy, mommy, mommy. I'm crying so bad. And my attorney said, look, the man trying to kill you. We need to leave. So we go get in the car, go to the shelter, call my mom. I say, Mom, I got him. I got him. She said, I'm so proud of you. Unfortunately, my mother passed before she was able to see my children, but she talked to them. And my children were angry. I said, you know, Grandma held on long enough to make sure that you guys were safe. And once she knew that you were safe, she let go. So don't be angry. So we had to wait until it got dark. We went in the basement of the Y, around the swimming pool, through the clothing closet. It was a red door. Opened the red door, a car was waiting. Got in the car, drove 45 minutes to SeaTac. Security picked us up from the car, took us to their security area. Once the pilot was ready, he radioed security. They escorted us to the plane. We got on the plane, landed in BWI before 9/11. Fast forward to the shootings. They told us to look for 2 Caucasians in a white box truck. So I was looking for that, and I was looking for John. Everybody was looking for 2 people. I was looking for 3. October 11th. My coworker picked me up for work, and she said, you know, there's a dark-colored car outside your cul-de-sac. I'm getting a bad feeling from that car. So we drive past the car. The driver looks at us, but the passenger had a newspaper. I went, I said, did you see that? She said, yes. I said, give me your phone. I called the police. They said, well, can you describe the car? I said, it's a dark-colored Caprice or Impala with New Jersey plates. 2 African-American males seated in the car. October 23rd, ATF and the FBI knocked on my door. They said, when was the last time you seen John L. Muhammad? My hands started sweating. I said, why are you asking me about John? They said, well, we just want to know when was the last time you seen him. I said, emergency custody hearing last year. They said, you haven't seen or heard from him since? I said, no, sir. We need for you to come down to the police station. So I went down to the police station, and they said, so you're sure you haven't heard from him? Nope, haven't heard from him. It's okay. We need for you to listen to this CD. it was a CD with a voice and it had an accent. I said, do you recognize this voice? I said, no, sir, I don't recognize the voice. I said, well, if you look at this letter, that was the letter that was posted to the tree. Do you recognize the handwriting in this letter? I say, no, sir, I don't. Agent Jensen Jordan was walking in and out of the room. He stops. He said, look, Ms. Muhammad, we're just going to have to tell you. We're going to name your ex-husband as a sniper. I said, what? John? My head hit the table. They say, yes, ma'am, do you think he would do something like this? I raised my head. I said, well, yeah. I said, well, why would you think that? I said, because we were watching a movie, and I don't remember the name of it, but he said, I could take a small city, terrorize it. They would think it would be a group of people, and it would only be me. I asked him, why would he do something like that, and he changed the subject. They said, well, Miss Muhammad, didn't you know you were the target? I said, well, no, but why would I think that? I said, well, there was a man shot 6 times. They took his laptop and $3,000. That's right down the street from you. There's another man a couple of miles from you was shot in the abdomen. Miss Muhammad, you were the target. Would you like to go into protective custody? I said, you gotta ask me that? They say, well, yeah, some people don't want to go. I said, okay, do you know where he is? No, ma'am. Have you caught him yet? No, ma'am. And you still have to ask me? Yes, ma'am. Yes, I want to go into protective custody, but we have to go get my children. So we go to get my children. The first person I see is my son. I pull him in the bathroom. I say, honey, they're going to name your dad as the sniper. He starts to melt to the floor. I say, but you can't break down right now because we got to go. Run downstairs, get my daughters. They're crying. We got to go, we got to go. As soon as we're leaving, the media is coming in. We go to a hotel. I still don't know where it is. Turn on the TV. The first person I see, the first time they show John's picture on the screen. I go over to the TV and put my hand on the screen and say, what happened to you? My son is crying on one bed. My daughters are crying on the other. I pull them together and they cry themselves to sleep. I get a pillow. I go in the bathroom, turn on the water in the tub and in the sink, close the door, sit on the floor and scream. Because I don't know who to call and I don't know what to do. The next day is when they caught him. So I'm in the hotel and ABC calls my sister's phone because she's with us. And she said, ABC is on the phone. I said, how did they get my number? They said, Ms. Muhammad, we're so sorry for the tragedy that you and your family went through, but we want to offer you to stay in the Mayflower as long as you like, as long as you give us exclusivity of your story. I said, ma'am, I don't even know what exclusivity means. All I know is that I need to protect my children, so I humbly decline your offer. And after they caught him, and me and my children were trying to get back to living, they didn't have anything to hold John on once they caught him. The Tacoma Police Department didn't put my restraining order in the NCIC, National Crime Information Center. So as they were stopping him and they kept running him and to try to find out who he is, that never came up. So that sheriff at the time put the restraining order in the NCIC, and they held him on violation of the restraining order. Had my restraining order not been put in place, they would have had to let him go. So as we're going through that process, trying to get counseling for my children, the community found out about me. And they said, well, you know, if you would have stayed with him, he just would have killed you. If you would have stayed on the West Coast, like y'all didn't matter, stayed on the West Coast, then the people on the East Coast would still be alive. How dare you call you and your children victims when none of you were hurt or killed? And how dare you bring this drama into this quiet community? So victim blaming was at the highest for me, but I didn't tell my children because I needed them to be emotionally well. Couldn't find counseling because everybody wanted to be famous. So I went to the library, I got a book on counseling, and I learned how to counsel me and my children myself. I figured if anybody's gonna mess them up, may as well be me. So we went through that process. We went through the, oh my God, that's my dad. We went through all of that. And I told them, look, God saw fit to bring the three of you from the both of us. You have every right to love your dad. You have every right to pray for him. Can't talk to him, but you can pray for him. You have every right to love and feel whatever you need to feel. A child should not have to choose which parent to love more or less. They came from both of us. And from then until now, I do not speak badly to my children about their dad. My son is 29, my daughters are 26 and 27. They have formed their own way of remembering him, and that's their choice. And I did not want to take their choice away. So it came for the execution. My children said, Mom, can we talk to Dad? Mom, this is it. This is it, Mom. This is it. If we don't talk to him, we'll never hear his voice again. Okay. Wasn't about me. It's about them. So I called his attorney. He said, you have to call the warden. I called the warden. He said, well, Ms. Muhammad, your children are under 18. So that means you got to go with them. No, I'm not going in that camp. Nope. We're going to find another way. But John would not cooperate. He wouldn't put their names on the docket in order for him to see them. His attorney said that the reason he did not want to talk to them because he could not, he was focusing on being executed, and he did not want to answer the question of why. So as we're watching the TV, we're noticing other people that are going to see him. And so my children say, Mom, what's up with that? I don't know what's up with that. But why is Dad doing that? I said, you know what? For me to give you an explanation for what your dad thinks and feels would be impossible, and it is not my responsibility to do that. So he has to be held accountable for even not wanting to see you. And that's how we're going to handle that. And so after that, execution took place. My son went in one room, my baby girl dropped to the floor, and my other daughters just sat on the sofa. I went to my son first. I said, honey, you okay? He said, I'm good, Mom. I'm good. All right. Went to my baby girl on the floor, picked her up, cradled her. She looked at me right in my eyes. I knew what she was looking for. She was looking for some type of emotion that I had that she could connect to in my eyes. But when he said, you have become my enemy, and as my enemy, I will kill you, every emotional tie I had to him, I severed. Because when you are a victim of domestic violence, if you don't sever that emotional tie, then you cannot move strategically in trying to get away from your abuser, because you're always concerned about what the abuser is thinking about what you're trying to do to get away. So I helped him to train in the military with them yellow books that they say they don't have anymore. But I remember that training. And so I adapted that training into my survival to get away from him. So when she didn't see that, she stopped crying just like that. I said, honey, you okay? Good, Mom. Good. Go to my daughter, Selena. Selena, you okay? Mom, Dad tried to kill you. Yeah, I know. I know. Well, how can he say he loves me and he was trying to kill you, Mom? How can he do that? I say, honey, you're angry. I am angry. I say, but you know what? He's gone. You got to let it go. It's going to kill you. And so they cried all that night. So the next day, because they all come in a group, and the baby girl is the spokesperson, she says, Mom, and they just standing there like this. Mom, can we go to the funeral? Y'all really trying me right now. Y'all really trying me. Mom, we didn't get to say bye. We didn't even get to hear his voice. We didn't get nothing, Mom. Can we go to the funeral, Mom? Mom. Okay. I called my publisher, took us down to the funeral. They got to see him, I didn't go inside. Did not go inside, sat in the parking lot. They went inside, they had their closure. We came home, I saw them lighter. So my son, again, he's 29. He's the manager of Sunglass Hut, he went to Louisiana Tech. My daughters, Selena and Taliba, my son's name is John. Selena went to Baldwin Wallace Conservatory. Taliba went to Cleveland State University. Both majored in vocal performance and both sing classical music in 8 different languages. I told them that you cannot use your dad as an excuse for failure. So you can come to me with any excuse, but you can't come to me and say, my dad was a DC sniper and I won't be able to make it. Wrong. Not happening. So I'm grateful for being here today. And it's one more thing that I want to say. So earlier I said that there's a victim, there's a survivor, and there's an abuser in the room. To the survivors in the room, I know that you haven't told anybody that you were a victim of domestic violence. Because you know they look at us like we pathetic. You don't want nobody to know because you don't want to see the light in their eyes diminish because you have exposed yourself to be a victim. So the survivors in the room, men and women, if you would be willing, you don't have to, but if you would be willing to stand with me so that the victims in the room can see what a survivor looks like, would you please stand with me? It's because we are a visual people. If I don't see your pain, then your pain does not exist. Because 80% of victims do not have physical scars, if I don't know you are a victim, how will I help? So for those who stood, thank you. For victims in the room, you don't want nobody to know, go to stand. Let them help you to process your pain. Let them show you that it is okay to speak up and to get help. Let them counsel you into understanding the pain you're feeling so that you can move forward. And always remember that every tear that falls is one step closer to your healing. So don't let anybody tell you need to get over it. Don't let anybody tell you you've been grieving too long. Why are you not over this yet? You take as long as you need to. Because this is your pain, this is your process, and no one can walk this journey but you. So thank you again for listening, and I appreciate being here.
You already are doing what I was hoping we'd do. Thank you very much for sharing your story. It's truly compelling, powerful, and I know you helped a lot of people in this room, and in turn, we can help more people who are not here today.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Another round of applause for Mildred Muhammad. And I think a lot of us need to exhale for just a moment. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was holding my breath. So I think it's probably good for us all to just take a moment and exhale. An incredible story. Thank you very much. Now I would like to introduce the chair of STAN's Board of Directors, Linda Best. And as Linda is coming up here, we're going to watch a video that shares some of her compelling story.
Well, I initially learned about STAN about 30-some years ago when my sister became a victim of domestic violence. That was in Oregon. And so the issue became paramount in my mind, of course, as I was dealing with that situation. Now, my sister's story is not the typical one you think about. There was not a pattern of abuse in the family. He had a temper, but there was not a pattern of physical abuse. So it's somewhat unique in that way. It certainly was a shock to us when it happened. My sister's name is Anne, 2 years younger than I, and she and her husband and 2 children were living in Oregon, both school teachers. He actually at that point was working for Oregon State University. And it was one evening, he'd been drinking, they had an argument. There was a gun in the house, and he got the gun and shot her in the head. It was nip and tuck whether she was going to even live. She was in intensive care for several days. Doctors didn't know if she would make it, but she did. And she suffered pretty serious brain damage. She was paralyzed on one side, and she had some short-term memory issues, although not too significant. She was not able to even do some of the basic tasks, and her cognitive abilities declined. And at that point, I had to take over her financial affairs, and that just destroyed her. She suddenly realized that she could not take care of herself. She couldn't even handle her finances. And so she had to spend 8 months in rehab before she could be released. She had 2 children. At that point, they were 14 and 16. It was a very traumatic experience for them. And given the fact that she had to go through rehab for 8 months, they became our children. I don't think you ever recover from a traumatic experience like that, but they're doing fine. Well, there were different stages during her rehabilitation and getting back into a somewhat normal life. She had to deal with her husband, whom once she realized that he had done it, because her memory really she couldn't remember the situation. It was so violent and traumatic. And once she realized that he had shot her, she decided to divorce him. Her quality of life had deteriorated to the point that she said, I just don't want to do it anymore. And I think, as I said, it was a real shock when it happened. I had no idea that something like this would ever happen. And one of my takeaways from that is that domestic violence cuts across all socioeconomic levels. People I don't think, realize that. And it's important to understand that. Well, I would hope that we can increase the resources that are available to victims. And I hope that we can do a better job of reaching out to communities who have a high percentage of this kind of domestic violence happening, and making sure that they are aware of the resources that are available through organizations like STAND. I think that's very critical. We've learned a lot in recent months about communities that are not aware of STAND but do have a high lethality factor, and we need to get help to those folks.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for being here. And I want to thank Mildred especially for her very compelling story and her powerful message. And it's certainly a timely message with everything that's going on and the information you've heard. At this time, I'd like you to join me in a silent testimony to all the people we know who have experienced violence. And we're repeating a little bit of what Mildred did, but that's okay. So we want to, what I'm going to ask you to do is to stand if the statement I read applies to you. And please remain standing until I finish reading. So here we go. Please stand if you are a survivor of family violence, be it physical, emotional, mental, or sexual assault by a spouse, partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, or parent. Thank you. And please stand if a family member has experienced violence by someone close who is supposed to love that person. Thank you. And please stand if you know someone who has experienced violence by someone close to him or her. Wow, look around. For those of you remaining, please rise to support Stand for Families Free of Violence. Thank you very much, and you may all be seated.
So we have been pulling on your heartstrings for about an hour now, and now it's time to pull on your purse strings. Thank you. In the center of your table are donation forms in a large envelope. And table captains, will you please pull them out and hand them to your guests? Your donation today will help support STAN's critical services and programs, saving lives and helping rebuild families who have suffered from family violence. And we now are going to have on your screen, you can see some examples of how your support can help. I'm going to go over here so I can see it. I'm going to start at the bottom. $2,000 can provide 10 anti-violence presentations in Contra Costa middle and high schools. And you saw the example of our YAB students earlier. $1,000 can provide 10 weeks of trauma-informed therapy to a child exposed to violence in the home. $500 can provide 2 nights of sanctuary, including meals and personal items in STAN's emergency shelter for a person in immediate danger. $250 can provide a full lethality assessment and transportation to emergency shelter in the middle of the night following a police call. $100 can provide an emergency night in a motel for someone escaping a violent home when our shelter is full. And $50 can provide bus passes and BART tickets to a survivor interviewing for a job as she rebuilds her life. And I have one last opportunity. And our awesome CEO, about 2 hours ago, made this offer. Are you ready? Anybody who would like to donate $150,000, Rhonda James will shave her head. Do we have any takers? I'm just kidding, but if anybody's serious about it, we'll do it. And there's one last thing I would like to say. If every person in this room today were to donate $230 to STAND, we would meet our goal for this event and for all the programs and services that we provide. Your donation will truly help change lives, so we thank you for whatever you can do. You may pay by credit card or check, and if your company will match your gift, please let us know. That's wonderful. And your donation is 100% tax deductible. Please fill out the card completely, and when you are finished, please take the yellow copy, put the original and your check, if you're writing one, in your envelope, and hand it to your table captain. And so table captains, as we end the program, please hand your envelope to a staff member. And you can also help us just by, as you go about your business and associate with your family, friends, and colleagues, tell them about STAND and the services we provide and how important supporting this organization is. So thank you again for coming and for all of your support for STAND. Well, there you are.
Thank you guys for taking the time to come today again. Just 2 quick reminders. CCTV has recorded today's program, and it will be airing soon, so stay tuned on our website for more details about that. Also, as you leave the ballroom this afternoon, you'll notice that our YAV and our volunteers are at each door. They're handing out a small gift for you and your loved ones to stay safe while using electronic devices. And you can also drop your name tags off with them. And then we hope we can see you guys again next year at our annual Rebuilding Lives Luncheon. So there'll also be details on our website for that too. Just a quick thank you for a woman who is behind the scenes. She's right behind you. She's gonna kill me for this. She's nodding her head. This program would not be possible without Melissa. She does so much. She puts in countless hours. She has a little one at home. I get emails from her at midnight and 5 in the morning, and I feel like a slacker responding at 6:30. So thank you, Melissa and Rhonda, who's with her.